Have you ever experienced a God wink? You know, the kind of experience you know without a shadow of a doubt that God stepped in and gave you a big old wink from heaven. I'm your host, Cindy Spar, broadcasting from Office Evolution in Troy, Michigan. I am the founder of My Collective Network and My Christian Business Network, two amazing business networking organizations. I am a firm believer that there is power in sharing God wink stories. Think of it as a way for people to shine their light on Jesus, one wink at a time. In Matthew 5:14, it says, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven." Welcome back, everyone. My name is Cindy Spar, the host of the God Wink podcast. And today we are blessed to have as our guest Leighton Campbell, coming down south, way, way far away from the cold state of Michigan. Leighton's coming to us from the beautiful sunshine state of Florida. So welcome, Leighton.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Cindy. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Now, we were connected by Colleen Buddy, who owns Office Evolution, people.
Oh,
So,
really? Wow.
yes, so you were probably in the downstairs atrium for a BNI meeting, and Colleen said, "You just got to meet this guy, Cindy. His name's Leighton. He's getting ready to launch a book." And I just thought, man, this dude would be perfect for the God wink. So excited to have you on today to share your God wink. But before you do so, I would just love for you to share with our listeners a little bit about you.
Okay, sure. So I'm married. We have 4 children. We live in Florida. Um, the things that our family does that is kind of maybe a little bit out of the norm is we do jujitsu together. So
Ooh.
that's a little different, and we enjoy doing that. We also do a lot of traveling together, and yeah, we have a great time.
Oh, I love that. Jiu-jitsu. Is that take a little while to catch on to?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a process that takes time. I've been doing it 6 years, and we've all been kind of doing it together. So it is a process, but you do grow as you are in it. And there's a lot of like life lessons that you can take from that that you can apply to like other areas of your life, whether it's business or just family and other things too. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, I have heard that it's really great, not only for adults, but for kids. Teaches like even disciplines and
Yeah,
different pieces that you can use all the way into obviously your adulthood.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, it's
S-
discipline is a big thing. It helps with confidence as well. And then there's also the whole self-defense aspect of it too. So there's that.
So good. Well, going into today, I know before we even hopped onto this episode, I was telling you, I don't know if it's like because it's the Christmas season or what's going on, but I just keep on hearing joy,
Yeah,
happiness.
yeah.
And so I would just love for you to share a little bit about how you were called into writing this book that's about to launch in February, you say?
Yeah, February 4th, first week in February. Yeah. So it actually started by a conversation that I had with my kids, and we were just sitting around at the table. Actually, we were in my car, and we were talking about happiness. And um, I was like, I wonder if we can come up with a formula, like an equation that we can measure people's happiness by. So I was kind of moderating the conversation. They had good input. Um, and at the end of the conversation, I looked down at the equation. I was like, wow, there might there might be something here. This like makes sense. So about a week later, I had my net business networking meeting where I was the educational coordinator at the time, and every week I would have to give some type of an educational topic on business life, those kinds of things. So I decided I was going to talk about the happiness equation, and I had a week to kind of polish it up a little bit, and it really kind of like it really made sense to me. So I presented it to my group, and I mean, I've been the educational coordinator, 7 I've been in the groups 13 years. I've been educational coordinator about 7 times, and that's 50 presentations a year, and I literally get no response, to anything that I say. I get a high five on the way back to my seat, but no one calls me or anything and says,
That was
how it impacted them.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
never happened. That presentation, almost everyone in the chapter, is 40 of us. Almost everyone either called me, texted me, emailed me, pulled me aside. It was like a response I had never gotten before, and that was kind of the origin of it. So 3.5 years later, fully researched, fully gotten really into the nitty-gritty, had more changes, and it developed more to the point where, yeah, I really think this is something that can help people.
Wow. Yeah, and it's intriguing too, like when you see like equation, like how in the world do you put an equation to your happiness?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so basically the idea is, there are certain variables that impact your happiness. So I just kind of combine them in a way where the things that are very important have like a certain weight and so on. The actual formula is very geeky. It is in the book, but there's exponents and denominators and numerators and those kinds of things. It's kind
Wow.
of wild. But your listeners can, for free, there's no credit card or email address required. They could go onto our website, answer the 7 questions, and get their happiness score on a 0 to 100 point scale. So I can share that now, or I can share that, later.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. I I really appreciated when we did our discovery call. We talked a little bit about happiness, and you were very clear. You were like, I didn't write this like with an audience of like this is Christians. This
Yeah,
this was written to every audience. It could be an atheist, it could be wherever, like whatever their faith, their belief is. Um, but when I think of like this Christmas season of, where are you finding your joy and happiness? A lot of people lately, I talked to a financial advisor today. He said, I could have been on Wall Street.
mm,
Like I had an offer to be on Wall Street and I was always about the numbers. Speaking of equations, he'd probably love to read your book. He's like, I
yeah,
just love the numbers. But when I got into it, I was like, okay, as an advisor, you think, yeah, they make you money, right? Like
yeah,
that's the goal. But once he had that opportunity, he was like, this isn't, Wall Street's not for me. Like he kind of felt like he was being called into more of helping people um, transform their heart and how they
mm,
viewed money because money can be used in wonderful ways, right?
sure,
God gives us opportunities towards ministries and serving and helping all these different missions come into play. And he says, my heart then began to want to help people walk in a path where they weren't as much focused in on like the money and the material, but they were focused on through the money they're able to give, they're able to do good with what they've been
sure,
blessed with. um, but it's such a heart transformation. Like even my kids, this will be probably the first Christmas season where we're not in a position to go all out on gifts. And what is the main reason for the season?
yeah, yeah,
um, and to shift that into serving people and helping those in need has been quite a change, for them to see. I don't
yeah,
even. I think sometimes we think we find our joy in things, and lately I'm finding more of a joy in helping my neighbor or using my gifts to serve and see how that ends up progressing towards people's missions and all of that.
yeah. You
um,
touched on about 5 of the variables
did
in the
I?
equation. Oh yeah, yeah. Your purpose, that like the financial advisor you talked about earlier, about his purpose. Like it almost doesn't matter how much money you have if you don't feel that you are moving towards your purpose in life, you're probably, not going to be happy. So that there's part of that. And then you also talk about serving other people. It's like, that is a huge source of happiness. And I think God kind of wired us that way where we are supposed to be in community. And if we're supposed to be in community, are we supposed to be doing that from like a selfish standpoint, or should we be, serving others, helping others? So yeah, there's that and a whole bunch more that you touched in. So yes.
Man, that's crazy. Well, I would love to come back and once we take this quick break, you shared with me a God wink story that
Yeah.
really stood up the hairs on my arms. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, how in the world? It's just amazing to hear how God worked in your life in that instance. So, listeners, sit tight, go grab a coffee, but come right back because we have got such a great story for you.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Hey Godwink listeners, this is Joy Starr. If you're looking for a trusted partner to ensure your home is safe and sound, look no further than Win Home Inspection, a veteran-owned business proudly serving Detroit metro area for the past 5 years. With a heart for serving this Christian community, Win Home Inspection delivers top-quality, reliable home inspection services you can trust. As a partner of the Godwink podcast, Win Home Inspection is offering a special healthy home inspection for just $249, a 10% savings exclusively for our listeners on the Godwink. Simply mention the Godwink podcast when scheduling your appointment to take advantage of this offer. Whether you're buying, selling, or just maintaining your home, let Win Home Inspection give you a peace of mind. Call 586-500-0099 or visit our website within the podcast notes to book your inspection today.
Welcome back, listeners, to the God Wink. I'm here with Leighton Campbell today, and we're entering into hearing how God divinely showed up in his personal life. So, Leighton, take it away.
All right. So got to give a bit of a backstory to put all this into context. So um, parents migrated from Jamaica when I was 3 months old, and we lived in which is where I am now. The video went out for a second.
Pretty good.
We're good? Okay. So my parents had a very uh, tumultuous, to say the least, abusive would be the better way to phrase that. My father was a complicated man. That's a generous way of saying it, and we had severe issues in that phase of our life when he was still with my mom. They ended up divorcing when I was 13 years old, and it was a kind of a breath of fresh air when he left because there was finally like peace in our home, and the constant threat of fear was lifted. So there was that, but then there was also the absence of a male figure, a positive male figure. Well, he was never really a positive male figure in our household. He was a male figure, and at times I'm sure he did some things well, but the negatives way outweighed the positives. So from 13 to it was probably like in my early 30s when and from that point on, maybe right after they divorced, I probably with him maybe 5 times or so, and that was like right after the divorce. And then from basically 13 and a half to 30, no communication with him. He did not support us in any way. He wasn't there for us in any way whatsoever, and that of course caused their own issues for myself, for the people in my family, and so on. So at the time, I was living in with my wife. I'm divorced from her, but remarried right now. We were living about 4 hours away from where we are right now, just outside of Tampa, and we had been going to a church there, and it was a great church. I learned so much there. I grew so much there, and they were having a series on forgiveness, and it was like really challenging you to think of the people in your life that you needed to forgive. Um, and one of the things that the pastor said that really kind of uh, struck a chord with me is like unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person is affected or dies by it.
Yeah.
And my feelings towards my father were very complicated. I never had a hatred for him, but it's kind of hard to, you know, uh, quantify, put into words how I felt. It wasn't an act of hatred, but it definitely wasn't love. It was somewhere in between there. Um, so hearing this message for a couple weeks in a row, like I really started going through all the people in my life that I needed to forgive, and I would reach out to them, and tell them, and I tried to find my father during this time and just let him know that I forgave him and that I wished him the best in life. I didn't know what could come of that, but I was also open to the possibility of a reconciliation if he was in a better place in his life, and I felt he wouldn't be toxic for me or my children at that point, and so on. So that was all going on, and again, like I said, we were 4 hours away from Broward County, the place that we lived. Um, it was kind of not so much a metropolitan area, so it didn't have like Jamaican food because again, we were from Jamaica and Jamaican food. I love Jamaican food, so anytime I would come back home, I would try and like load up and get all the Jamaican food that I could. So there was this place that was kind of in a like, on the outskirts of town, and, they were known for having really good jerk chicken, which is a very famous dish for Jamaican people. And everyone here loves it too, you don't have to be Jamaican, so if you ever have an opportunity to get good jerk, definitely get it. So, I go to this place, pull up, the, um, the line is kinda almost wrapped around the building kind of a thing, which I expected because, I knew that it was a popular place. So I get in line. I'm at the end of the line of a very long line. There's probably 50 people or so in there. And the person in front of me looks eerily familiar. And it's been a really long time since I saw my father, and I wasn't sure how much he changed. But it was a recurring theme in my life that I would see men that kind of I thought they may be able to fit the description of my father, and the thought would come into my mind, but I would see them and realize, okay, yeah, no, that's not him. So this is not like an unfamiliar feeling that I had, but this one was like stronger than the other times that it occurred. So I wasn't really sure, and then he spoke, and I was like, wow, this 100% is my father, which is really interesting because you see something you don't know, but you hear it and you instantly know this is
Right.
100% my father. So again, was not really prepared emotionally for this, and I didn't know where he was. I kind of had an idea. I was in a good place, but just not prepared. So I covered my face, like covered my mouth and nose, just so that he wouldn't like see me and then initiate the contact with me not really being ready for it. So time is weird. Like I wish I could give you like a point by point breakdown of how this all happened, but it's really kind of foggy. Um, all I know is that I don't say anything to him in line. At some point, I get through the line and I'm sitting down with my food, and I'm like, "This is what I have been asking for, praying for. Not necessarily reconciliation, but a chance to tell him that I forgive him and that
Mm.
I hope and pray for the best for him." So I do that. I walk over to where he's sitting down, and I say, um, "Are you Lennox Campbell?" And then he looks up at me and says, "Yes, I am." And I said, "I'm your son, Leighton." And then he had hearing problems because he was in the military in Jamaica and was too close to ordnance, so he had hearing aids. So he took his hearing aids out, put them on the table. He stood up, and then he hugged me. Um, so now I hug him back because I'm open to everything at this point. I'm hoping for the best, you know. And I tell him, I just wanted to let you know that I have no unforgiveness in my heart for you, and I truly hope and wish you the best in life. And even at this moment, I'm still hoping for possible reconciliation, that kind of thing. Uh, it's unfortunate that the story doesn't have it is it's not a horrible ending, but it's definitely not a fairy tale ending. Um, he started to go into like his side of the story, which was
Of
really not
course.
because you can't leave a woman with 6 children by herself. You can't leave your boys to figure that out by themselves. You can't leave your daughters to figure that out by themselves. It's just inexcusable. And I just realized that look, he's just not in a place where we could like reconcile and have this, fairy tale
Mhm.
ending to the story. But I did let him know how I felt. And I also asked him, I asked him, you know, uh, are you still a Christian? Do you still believe? Like, is this some because at the point in the conversation where I realized that there was nothing for us on this earth, at least at that time, maybe on the next life, we would be able to um, have some kind of connection. And he said he did, um, and that it's hard to really know when someone says that, like what that means to them, or that's
Right.
really between them and God. But it was something, and that was really kind of how it ended. At least that part of the conversation or that interaction ended. Um, Several years later, during COVID, he ended up passing away. He didn't die from COVID, but he had some other medical issues that he succumbed to during COVID. And one of the things that was very helpful or reassuring is that, I mean, he had been the type of person who would borrow money from people, never pay him back, kind of a con artist in addition to all the other issues that he had. But I found out like the people that were in his life at the time, he at the end of his life did what he could, which wasn't much, but it was a gesture of trying to make things right. Um, and that made me think that, you know, maybe we will see him, and what I wasn't able to get here, um, I'll be able to get, you know, on the other side. So so maybe it will be a fairy tale ending after all, but
Mhm.
it's just not gonna happen here. So
Mhm. Man, that's powerful. And two, you can't help but have that sort of faith too, that you'd see him in heaven because God doesn't do anything by mistake either. Whether it was he was working in your heart with forgiveness, right? And you just had the closure that you needed, um, or that he's like, this is just the beginning. So when you're here, you're going to see a transformation, you
I
know?
truly hope so, and yeah, I agree with you. I don't think God doesn't really in my life and from what I've seen, he doesn't work that way to like build up to that and then just to
Mhm.
have it work out in a way that, God has a plan for everyone and everyone has their own things that they're dealing with. And yeah, I do that gives me hope. That's kind of why I think I got emotional is because I think that is something that's going to happen and I look forward to it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's funny how too you go through the layers and sometimes God even gives you revelations as you're giving your testimony, like connecting the dots, um, that you don't realize. And we had that in our last guest that did. She uh, she was shot at. She took a bullet
Mm,
that that hit her phone and never entered her body from an
Wow.
AK-47. So she realized, oh my gosh, the last time I had a near death was the exact same time that I got shot at. And I'm like, did you just realize this during the Godwink podcast? She said, yeah. But
That puts it in context. Yeah.
yeah. But I always wanted to ask this because you had shared this story with me, obviously, prior to.
Mhm.
Did you grow up around the Bradenton area? Like, was that your dad's place that he would liked, or?
Oh, no. We just lived there. My family, the majority of my family, lives and lived at the time in Broward County. So
Oh.
that's kind of where our home base more or less was. Um, my ex-wife and I at the time, we lived in Bradenton about 4 hours away. So that's kind of how Bradenton comes into the story. But I thank God for our time in Bradenton because I connected with one of the most spiritual growth I've had happened while I was in Bradenton at the church that I went to, the pastor that I was under. Um, so yeah, that everything happens for a reason, and maybe
Yeah.
somebody be blessed by the story, and that's awesome too.
Oh yeah. The power of forgiveness. That's what it makes me think of. Well, I love asking this question to all of our guests that come on the podcast, and that is, what scripture in the Bible is the scripture that was divinely placed there for Leighton Campbell?
Uh, Psalms 27, and that scripture I can't recite it by verse, but essentially it's like when everyone else fails you and you have nothing, and there's no one that's there for you in any way, or at least you feel that way. God is there for you, and that was really I read that scripture hundreds of times after my divorce, and before my remarriage, because I really needed that. I felt like you know I needed that. It's prior to that, I was in some really deep theological ideas and was spiritually growing. But like when that happened, it was like I needed the ABCs, one, two, threes of Christianity, and that's kind of what I got and what I needed at that time. So that scripture verse has a special place in my life.
It- And this is something too that has, kind of been resonating with me. How oftentimes we naturally, say something makes us upset. We're so quick to call up somebody we know. Can you believe this happened? And whether you're venting or asking them, what their recommendation would be, when we just do not naturally go to the Lord about it. We just
Yeah,
don't. Like, it's like, just let me call this person first, right? And then, yeah, God's got the back end. But lately, I've really personally, He's working in me with that, and I'm
great.
resisting the old nature of I'm not going to complain. I'm not no gossiping. Like, I'm
Mhm.
just asking, what? Just change my heart, like change my heart to where there's just as if there's nobody left, and I could just go to you and know you've got this, and you can redeem whatever hurt, whatever pain is going on. I don't know. I just think that I personally, I took it for granted, and now I'm seeing the power of handing it over.
Yeah, handing it over first. Yeah, you're right. That's I would say I didn't know that was something I needed to work on, but I need to add it to my list of the things I'm working on. But yeah, I think there's definitely wisdom in that.
Yeah, and our kids watch us. I had this past weekend something happen, and I was real frustrated. And my 14-year-old son was in the living room, and he kind of related with what had transpired, and I'm just complaining, out of anger, and I can't believe this person did that, this, that, and the other. Well, my son goes to leave to go upstairs to grab his uniform to go to work for the day, and as I'm downstairs, I just felt like in the kitchen, are you happy feeling this way? You have a choice right now. You can release this and let it go. You can respectfully confront the situation, which that can be healthy as well. What are you going to do? So I put my hands up in the air in the middle of the kitchen, and I'm like, God, I give this to you.
Mm,
I don't want to feel this hurt. I don't want to feel this pain. I don't feel good right now. This doesn't feel like something that would be of you. And I just ask, I can't give this up on my own and take it off. Like,
mm,
I give it to you. And my son comes back downstairs, and immediately, now this doesn't always happen immediately, but immediately, because kind of swings back in, then you got to
yeah.
push it out again. But
Yeah.
I immediately felt that burden lift off, and that's the forgiveness as
Mm,
well, and my son comes downstairs, and I give him a hug, and he's like, what's going on? Why are you hugging me?
mm,
And I said, I just wanted to ask you to forgive me for talking bad about that person, even
mm.
if it felt that I had the right to be mad. It's not right that I vent and try and feel better by venting to you about it. Um, and so he was quiet, but I could sense from him that he was like, wow, that was
Yeah.
different, but
Yeah.
we as parents, we have a role to play to show them we're flawed too. We mess up too. But when you get angry, I want you to see that I'm choosing to just give it up to God.
Yeah. The best way to teach lessons are through example. So, and what I found is like a lot of the things I say, sometimes in one ear out the other, but the things that I do, the things that they see me do, those are the things that really stick
Mhm.
and then surprise me when I turn around and I see them doing it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess this is working.
Yay! Well, Leighton, if our listeners wanted to connect with you, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, probably the best place to connect with us would be on Instagram. Um, our Instagram handle is at your happiness EQ, and that's going to have all of our content is there, and they can follow along with the book tour that we did where I met Colleen, and this is kind of why I'm here now. We went all across the country interviewing people with the 7 happiness equation questions, so they can do that there. There's also a link to the pre-sale in the bio, so all of that is there, and so on. So that's the best way to connect.
I love it. Well, Leighton, thank you so much for being on the God Wink today. It was such a pleasure hearing your story. And listeners, if you really enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and review the episode. We know that there's a lot of people out there that may be going through some similar things. Maybe they're in family situations. They haven't seen their dad, right? They haven't seen their mom. This is just a time of forgiveness, reconciliation. Doesn't always mean it goes according to plan, but it's about what you're holding in your heart is what counts. So, Leighton, thank you so much for being on the God Wink today.
Thank you, Cindy. Really appreciate it.
All right, listeners, we look forward to having you listen in on the next God Wink.
I want to give a big thank you to Office Evolution Troy for providing their podcast studio for us this afternoon to record. If you have any questions or you would like to book your own time in their podcast studio, give them a call at 586-788-9966. If today's God Wink story really hit home with you, we would love to hear about it through the God Wink community on Facebook. If you know of someone that needs to hear today's God Wink story, show them some love and tag them on the God Wink podcast. You never know how a God Wink story might change their day around for the better. If you or someone you know has a God Wink story that the world needs to hear, we want to hear it. Simply click the link within the podcast notes to send in your God Wink story. Until next time, remember, God's got you. Wink, wink.